as even some of the phraseology, like the historical pedigree that was used in the opinion was a phrase that we were using in our own brief. You can start to understand why the briefing is so important for these justices as they come to their opinions on the law.
Well, that's exactly correct. And look, we've been at this for 45 years, and the truth of the matter is this: our briefs are frequently cited by the courts, utilized by the courts, and this was a perfect example of it. It came out exactly as we anticipated, and we were hopeful for, and it's the perfect decision in the sense that it curtails the ability of these judges to stop the administration's actions for the entire country. They could do it for their district. They can't do it for the plaintiffs that's in front of them, but not for the whole country. And that makes a big difference in how these things move forward.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too, because this is something that's going to be setting precedent. A lot of people think about the fact that President Trump's currently in office as President Trump. This isn't just for President Trump. This is for future Republicans and Democrats, because if you could play this game, it will be endless. It would have been an endless battle for every administration, maybe for the history of time at that point, where nothing could get done. It's another way that these judges and really, honestly, the activists can figure out how to stop even what the American people are voting for.
That's exactly correct. And here's the reality of what's happened. This put a check on the judiciary, which, again, coincides with the constitutional directives of a unitary executive. The president makes these decisions. A judge could stop it, but only for their district. No more universal jurisdiction. It wasn't good if Republicans did it. It's not good if Democrats do it. It should not happen.
To bring it down just a little bit more for those who are just tuning in right now. So overall, because, of course, if you start reading one of these wins, you start reading one of the opinions from the Supreme Court, if you're not used to reading the opinions, it can get a little murky. So I was reading it, starting to read it, and I jumped to the bottom to go, okay, who voted for it? Because I think that can be a pretty good indication of who voted for what, and whether they were being a little bit more nuanced in it. But for those who are just reading this, what I guess would be the big win takeaways? Is there anything we need to be looking out for in terms of the way these opinions are written?
Well, the big win takeaway is that a judge cannot stop the action. An individual judge can't stop the actions of the administration for the entire country. That's over. So this judge shopping that they're doing is finished. And that's really important. And what this means is the president can exercise his authority under Article 2. The court's Article 3 authority is checked in the sense that their jurisdiction is limited to what Congress authorized. Congress did not authorize universal jurisdiction. There was no history or precedent. It's over.
Sometimes, as Lo is talking about, you read, and especially when the opinions are rooted in the law and they are going through the history and things, sometimes you do have to parse out, okay, how big of a win is this? Is this very limited to this one case, or is it broad? But sometimes you can jump to the dissents and get a real full picture of how big of a win it is based on how upset the more liberal, philosophically minded justices are. And I wanted to read this from Justice Jackson's dissent, who has actually surprised us many times by voting in the way of the conservatives, especially on the immunity decision where she was joining the conservatives in that. But she had this to say about this opinion. Perhaps the degradation of our rule of law regime would have happened anyway, but this court's complicity in the creation of a culture of disdain for lower courts, their rulings, and the law as they interpret it will surely hasten the downfall of our governing institutions, enabling our collective demise. I don't think I've read something so apocalyptic in a dissent before, but maybe I'm wrong.
Hilarious.
First of all, okay, it's a procedural decision. Okay, and it's a good procedural decision. It says courts can exercise universal jurisdiction. That makes total sense. But to say this is the end of the rule of law, we know it, is nonsense. I mean, totally incorrect. Great decision by Justice Barrett. Good win for the administration. Good win for us. We're thrilled.
All right, thank you, Dan, for joining us. Again, Jay Sekulow, Chief Counsel of the ACLJ. In the next segment, we're going to hear from J.B. McCuskey, Attorney General of West Virginia, right. And he was directly involved in our suit here.
That's right. We worked with the Attorney General's office of West Virginia, and in the brief that we filed was on behalf of the state of West Virginia. So both the Attorney General and his Solicitor General, as well as our team's names, are all on the front of the brief. And the brief of amicus curiae state of West Virginia in support of the applicants is the title of our brief. So it's a win for not just the ACLJ and all of our members, but as well as a client in this, the state of West Virginia, that was concerned about the implications of these district judges, not just on the administration, but how people could then go and forum shop to get nationwide injunctions to try and block things that individual states were doing, and trying to almost have state warfare, economic warfare or lawfare against other states by the way that injunctions could be placed and handed down. And so we'll get the take of Attorney General McCuskey in the next segment. Very busy time for the Attorney General. He's able to join us, so that's going to be great to have him joining us in the next segment.
Things that last forever matter. And what do you do in life that will last forever? Well, your kids, your grandkids. So you think about those things. What lasts forever?
To be standing up for the citizens of West Virginia, filed together a brief at the U.S. Supreme Court today in these cases involving district court judges issuing injunctions preventing the executive branch from being able to function. But we've gotten to a point in time where the courts have gotten very politicized. I've talked about this with you, JB, before, but I think just leaving that court case, what you can see is taking politics out of the law is becoming more and more difficult every day. And it's not just talking about President Trump, but from administration to administration. If we keep going down this road, it's hard to see where it stops.
Well, government overreach exists in the judicial branch as much as it does in the executive and the legislative branch. And West Virginia has been a leader in ensuring that administrative agencies don't overreach their authority. Things like the EPA, things like Waters of the United States, where we were being regulated outside of what the congressionally available remedies were. And we said to the court, we said, hey, the EPA has overstepped its bounds here. The Constitution and the law allows them to do this. The courts have the same set of laws and the same set of rules. And district courts are only allowed to decide cases for the plaintiffs and the people that are in front of them. And I think the most salient factor here is that there is a remedy. The remedy is to file a case in the court where you certify a class of people so the court knows who they're talking to. They got into that a lot today. And I think the fundamental issue that we're talking about now is I think the court recognized that these are disfavored and that this cadre of nationwide injunctions is a dangerous road to hoe. I think the question is going to become whether or not they believe exceptions should exist in extraordinary circumstances. They're either going to say the rules matter in all circumstances, or they're going to say we need to start limiting the way that district courts can do this. We're very hopeful that they're going to follow the historical rule of law and say that we don't do nationwide injunctions in this country.
When you look at this issue too, I mean, and this is why you got involved and why the state of West Virginia is involved in this case, is because you're not looking at it as just a temporary, what's going to happen the next first 100 days of a presidency. And yes, I could step back and say, from a political standpoint, this is a broader issue going on in this one case. I mean, basically every time this executive has tried to act, this is what's being done. You find a court in Washington State that will say, you know what, if this district court judge said you could stop the interpretation of this citizenship grant, that I could stop whether the coal industry can produce more coal. And then ultimately, so we want to step out from the politics, but like you said, these are those kind of crossroads of the country.
We're joined by Attorney General of West Virginia, J.B. McCuskey, who has obviously been deeply involved in this case through our entire run here at the ACLJ. Of course, he's an ACLJ alum as well. But JB, I want to get your initial feelings coming after this big win.
Yeah, this is a really good one. While we didn't get to the merits of the actual underlying question, the Supreme Court held very sternly that these nationwide injunctions need to stop and that they are unconstitutional. They do exceed the scope of what our district courts are allowed to do, and they are politicizing the courts in a way that is very dangerous, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat doing it. And so we are just tickled, and the best part about this is that much of the language used in the amicus that we co-drafted with you guys was relied upon by the court in their holding. So we're really happy about this one.
Amazing to read those and always see what the ACLJ can do and what your team has done. Because when I look at this, and you're right, this is something bipartisanship should overtake this win, not just a President Trump win, not just a Attorney General West Virginia win, because this is going to set precedent for the rest of our life, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And look, if you agree like we agree, that shouldn't matter in this sense that it's not a partisan win one way or the other. But Will, I know you got something you want to share.
Right, and JB, you may have not seen this yet. I know that you probably were poring over the dissents just to see what the justices, the three liberal justices, had to say on this opinion. But there is a line I want to get your take on, especially as someone who is an attorney general of a state, who is very much lives by the rule of law in your everyday proceedings as that officer of the state. And Justice Jackson had this to say in her dissent: perhaps the degradation of our rule of law regime would happen anyway, but this court's complicity in the creation of a culture of disdain for lower courts, their rulings, and the law as they interpret it will surely hasten the downfall of our governing institutions, enabling our collective demise. Is that the feeling you get from this ruling, Attorney General?
I generally don't feel like our country is spiraling into chaos when we uphold the constitutional framework that was set up by the framers, for sure. And, honestly, that's it feels a little on the nose, if I'm being honest. I mean, that is a pretty lengthy and weighty thing to say about district courts being able to issue nationwide injunctions. Yeah, that is, it's probably what prompted the small response to to that language by Amy Coney Barrett too, if I had to guess.
And normally you don't
so
see within opinions like that, within the body of the opinion, a direct smackdown, so to speak. And that's what the Attorney General's referencing, is that this was written by Justice Barrett. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this: Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary.
Yeah, it feels almost, like the time of the founders,
right.
Like the way they would talk to each other
Right.
via the news,
Right, through
via
letters,
papers, through letters. Like it's just kind of, it's humorous, but it's not. But it is humorous to read this like end of the world apocalyptic language. You're right, when it comes down to whether judges have the right to make these kind of decisions. JB, I'm very excited that we were able to wrap this up also so quickly, and that the ACLJ team was able to jump in and help you out. But you and Jordan were so actively involved in this. You were there at the court, really just being, when the ACLJ team can get behind something like this, it really shows how amazing the work can be done.
Yes, and this is sort of the reason why you build coalitions, right, is to make sure that you have all of the skill you need to do big things. And this is a really, really big win, not just for, obviously, West Virginia, but this is a big win for our country. This scourge of nationwide injunctions was only going to get worse, and we had to step in and do something. And I'm just really thankful that we were able to play a part in this, and even more thankful for the 6 majority judges who agreed with us.
JB, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you've got a lot going on, a lot on your plate. It's not like you just sit around and read opinions from the Supreme Court all day. So thank you for joining us, being able to, on quick notice when we got this out. Your team is wonderful to work with. We appreciate them and appreciate you joining us on the broadcast today.
Yeah, I don't have to read those things, Will. I have you for that.
That's right.
Just like old times.
You guys have a great day, and we are pouring through this decision, and it really is a good one.
All right, JB, thank you so much for joining us. Attorney General J.B. McCuskey from West Virginia. We're able to have such amazing guests like JB, who also are ACLJ alumni, people that have been part of the team throughout the years, and it's really encouraging to go to this next step and be able to see how our team has been able to now influence the Supreme Court of the United States once again for another generation. And again, that doesn't happen without your support. I do want to take some phone calls also, and I want to hear from President Trump, because I know that he has been speaking about this. Do you want to play something from Trump?
Let's go ahead. This is from the press conference. He
moments ago
announced early, as soon as this came out, this decision by the Supreme Court, that there would be a press conference with him and the Attorney General and Todd Blanche as well.
Was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades, and we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century.
All right, let's continue on. We got John in Boston. John, you're on the air.
Thanks for taking my call, guys. What do we do with judges like Judge Murphy up here in Boston, who is ignoring the Supreme Court's ruling and basically saying,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna find you in contempt if you when you come back.
So what John's referring to is that there was the judge that issued an injunction about the president deporting migrants that were slated for removal to a third-party country. Mm-hmm. We saw a decision out of the Supreme Court earlier this week, actually, about that very issue, which said, that they can be moving, at least at this point, move forward. They can be taken to third-party countries instead of directly back. You may think, okay, an Iranian may not be received back in Iran right now, or a Venezuelan may not be received back in Venezuela because we don't have good relationship with those countries. But then the Judge Murphy out of Massachusetts, as you mentioned, John, as you are there as well, has said basically it seems like he's going to defy the Supreme Court. Don't know where this one goes, but I know the government is asking the justices at the Supreme Court to address the, quote, unprecedented defiance of the Supreme Court's authority. So that is something we do need to watch, John, and we'll see if there's anything the Supreme Court does, because right now they're in recess.
All right, John, thank you for calling. We got 2 more calls. We got 2.5 minutes. We're going to try. Let's go to Wes first. Wes, you're on the air.
Yes. How come the illegal aliens get kicked out, but the people that hire them don't have any repercussions?
I don't know if that's necessarily true, Wes, that they don't have any repercussions. And look, we obviously have a lot of issues that we have to get through in terms of employment and verification and all that. It seems like every time they put in some sort of new verification system, there's an easy way around it. But Will, you got something? I just saw you talking.
Well, I know that specifically that the FBI and the government is doing things. There's this is just from a while ago
just from a while ago.
No, I mean, but Dan Bongino put up an update that there was a big business that was specifically going around that rules, and that one, they had worked with ICE to handle the issue of the migrants as well, but they are looking at what statutes were violated.
It's just not making as much news, Wes, but it is happening. And look, I think there's a lot of people who have built their businesses on that, unfortunately, and they're now trying to figure out what to do. That's why I even saw some relief happen for the hospitality industry. Okay, they're trying to figure out how they're going to keep it functioning. Not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's the facts. Let's go to David very quickly in Tennessee.
Where does birthright citizenship stand? As it is now, Trump says they have to be a citizen or under the jurisdiction.
Here's the real quick answer on that. It will have to return to the Supreme Court, that executive order, because the case still ongoing. So the individual that, or a group of individuals, because there were several different cases that got consolidated, they still have the injunction. So they still have this in place where they can fight.
So you got to start over.
They have to go through the court to try and see where the disposition of the merits of that happens.
We'll keep monitoring, David. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who watched.
As always, let me thank everybody at TBN for providing this time to us at no cost so we can update you on the most important issues of the day. From all of us at the ACLJ, thanks, TBN.